Chapter 21 Kiss and Run. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The atmosphere filled with extremely exciting anticipation instantly turned into a plain vast wilderness with nothing but dusts and wind when Say just walked away like a moving stone as if nothing just happened. Causing Zacky's shoulders fell as he felt like he wanted to cry so bad but no tears were coming out from his eyes. He felt like he was lifted up to the highest stage of the heaven by a certain monstrous being, just to leave him there with nothing but dusts and wind. It was a completely inexplicable feeling of extreme expectation with extreme nothingness as result. "Why are you doing this to me?" He could only shout deep within and almost fall into his knees. However, he was not the kind to just self-destruct just like that. He needs to at least do something to make the culprit pay even a little. "Oi! Say! Wait right there." Zacky's voice was out of control. He couldn't accept the result he has seen at all. He was still sure that Say was just suppressing himself to react, and besides, he believes that long silence after that kiss has a sure meaning behind it. He then caught up with Say and put his arm on his shoulder as he grinned at him. "Ho ho, how's it, how was it? How was that flash kiss?" he asked in an intensely annoying way. Causing Say halted right away as he looked at him coldly as if telling him to remove his arm on him or he'll lose his life. "Oh come on Say, just tell me okay. Don't be shy, I knew you felt something, you definitely felt something, I'm 1001% sure of it, right? Right." Zacky's annoying voice, his annoying words, and his annoying grins were like a powerful force that always makes Say went extremely pissed to the point that his bloodlust instantly enveloped the entire house. "Look, you were obviously stunned and dumbstruck, I'll bet with my own two eyes. I'm sure that long pause, that long silence." Ouch! Zacky's loud cry echoed inside the mansion as Say beat him with one hard strike, making him roll on the floor like a little kid being punished by his dad. Still, Say was being pissed even more. It was because the annoying guy was at his insane acting mode again. He could only barely land that blow on him. And Say knew that even his fastest attack will never match Zacky's inhumane speed. "Stop acting, we're going after her," he said. And Say's words instantly made the rolling cinnamon on the floor stood like a soldier who was just awakened by his superior with an extremely exciting news. Really? Why? Are you worried? Wait. Do you miss her already? I mean, already. Are you serious? Shut up or you'll stay. Yes, yes. I'll stop now. Let's go." Meanwhile, Davi was still biting her lips hard. That moment she kissed him, she almost couldn't feel anything but heat from her entire being. She felt like her entire body just blushed like blazing red. Her head was in chaos. She couldn't believe that it was all just because of a single simple kiss that wasn't even on the lips. God, what's happening to me? That was just a simple goodbye kiss and I'm like this. Davi was having a hard time calming herself down. She succeeded but her miscalculation was her own reaction, she was supposed to do it naturally. And she was troubled about Say's reaction. She was troubled about herself. She can't believe that she ran away instantly, making the supposed to be cheesy move turned out to be a kiss and run case. Ah! This is driving me crazy. "Miss, we're here." The taxi driver's voice startled her and as soon as she stepped out of the car, she shook her head multiple times. She then started walking while trying to focus herself in the noisy yet colorful and lively place before her. Chapter 22 Fragile-looking Snow White. You are listening at novelfull.audio. "So. What's the point of us coming here if we'll just stay here?" Zacky's voice was filled with nothing but boredom as his face was sticking to the car's window, while his lazy eyes were focused on the crowded place across the road. "How about you stay here and I'll go," he continued, but Say instantly replied him with intensely sharp glares as if telling him that he'll lose his legs the moment he steps out of the car. Causing Zacky's face turned extremely bored as though he's about to die with boredom while letting go a deep and disappointed sigh. But after a few minutes, Zaki couldn't keep his mouth shut and talked again. Do you really intend to just wait here forever? You see, women took forever when they go shopping, okay? How about I'll go after her and take a video of her in secret while you watch here? Here, I'll use bdnvl.m, no need. Ha. Listen to Zaki couldn't continue talking. It was because Say suddenly lifted his phone and a live video of Davi talking happily to a few lively vegetable sellers was already playing in it. Who the hell did you send? Jean. Why that brat instead of me? Why? Zaki tugged his own brown hair, looking so damn disappointed, as if he was a kid who just failed to get the role he wanted from their primary school stage play, while Say just completely ignored him as he focused on the girl on his phone. After an hour, Zaki was already at his limit and was about to burst when Say finally put down his phone and looked out the window with no expression. Zaki also abruptly awakened, as though his boredom instantly disappeared, and stick his face in the window. A girl in commoner's clothes was now walking with bags of vegetables in her hands. Her long black silky hair was tied and she's completely barefaced, and yet people around her can't help but stare at her as if a goddess suddenly appeared in the middle of a noisy market. Her white porcelain skin glowed even whiter under the sun, making her appear as though she's Snow White lost in the market. Watching her, somehow made Zaki felt refreshed. As though, she's a fresh dew in the vast dry desert. However, what happened next slowly made the car's temperature went down to 0 degrees. And as if the fresh dew was about to be stolen by some filthy creatures, Zaki's fist instantly clenched tight as ever. Davi was walking nonchalantly when 3 men suddenly walked beside her, as they appeared to be offering help to carry the vegetable bags in her hands. The girl was obviously getting troubled, seriously shaking her head to them. But Zaki, who instantly went angry, couldn't talk nor make a move, as if he suddenly went frozen. It was because he felt a sudden and extremely cold chill from the man beside him. He slowly turned his face towards Say like a robot. And the moment he saw Say's face, Zaki's darkened face instantly turned radiant. Stars almost appeared around his face. And the reason was because Say's expressionless face just now turned a bit angry. His sharp eyes were locked on the guys in front of his wife, emitting a sudden and intense bloodlust. Meanwhile, Davi's face turned sour and her bright eyes turned sharp as the persistent men just won't budge at all. She was starting to make a move and escape from them when one of the guys bumped into an old woman. The impact was strong enough that the old woman fell on the ground and the fruits she bought scattered on the ground. And worse was that, the guy responsible didn't even glance at her. Davi instantly halted. Her already sour face turned instantly deadly as she glared at the man with intense penetrating stare. She put her bags down and helped the old lady. Apologize to her, she demanded, but the haughty guy just smirked evilly. He still won't even look at the old woman. Oh. I don't get why a goddess like you is willing to touch an old hag like that. But well. Want me to apologize? Sure, as you wish, fair lady. The man talked like a trash, and instead of apologizing, he stomped his filthy foot into the old woman's fruits like a madman. Davi's eyes instantly darkened, and the next thing she did halted Jean, who was about to secretly make a move and just kill the trash man who dared making Say's wife angry. Jean's eyes turned wide and a sudden elegant kick. Not that strong but precise and fast. Landed on the man's jaw the moment he turned his gaze away. He fell on the ground unconscious, instantly turning. The other 2 fell silent and just walked away. Everyone looking at them unconsciously raised their hands and clapped as they gave her nothing but praise. They couldn't believe that the fragile-looking Snow White just now was actually a badass goddess with a kind heart, willing to save the weak from evil beings. On the other hand, a quiet and non-existent young man, about 14.15 years old, was amazed. He was already told by Zaki that the young miss joined a taekwondo club back in high school, but he didn't expect her to bravely apply her beautiful kick in reality. His keen and sharp gazes then focused on the unconscious man on the ground with an eyes filled with subsiding desire to kill. Be thankful trash, that kick just saved your life. Chapter 23. That's a promise. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Grey Mansion. Benove calm and alluring scent of a delicious hot pot dancing with the wind caused all the hidden beings around the house raise their heads as they quietly craving for it. But of course, as expected, the only one who didn't drool was the wooden man sitting nonchalantly cold in a long table without any visible expression in his every move. A girl dressed in plain white served a bowl in front of him as she stared at him expectantly, waiting for his reaction. But as expected, Say, who was wearing his usual dark clothes, started eating quietly as usual, with no visible reactions at all. Thankfully, he soon realized the meaning behind the gazes being thrown on him. He raised his head and looked at the girl who was watching him intently. Good, he said with his same blank tone. Then he continued eating. Resting her face in one hand, Davi could only smile. The result was exactly as what she expected, but she strangely didn't feel any disappointment. She felt as though she was glad instead that he's at least eating the food she cooked for him. Is it okay for you if I'll be the one cooking for you from now on? She asked. Say raised his head and looked at her, replying her one word. Why? Why? Do I need to have a reason for cooking for him? Davi's calm self turned a bit puzzled, and for a moment, she didn't know what to say. Because I'm your wife. And I don't have much work to do here anyway. Her statement was followed by another long silence. And Say was still looking at her sudden indifferent expression. Of course it was almost an expression no one should have noticed, but in front of Say, it's quite obvious. He could also tell that her voice slightly wavered when she said, she doesn't have much work to do. Are you getting bored here? That, Davi was instantly tongue-tied. She didn't expect the man to ask her such question. She didn't expect him to easily see through the emotion she's suppressing so bad within her. Leaving her without a choice, she was forced to admit it. It's not really like that, but maybe I'm not just used in staying all day long inside a house. Especially when you're not around, but I'm sure I'll get used to it soon. What do you want to do? Davi wasn't sure about what he meant. She doesn't want to jump into conclusions, especially when it comes to this unfathomable man. She stared at him curious. You can still pursue your dream if you wish. The moment those words came out of Say's mouth, Davi abruptly stood as if she couldn't believe what he just said. Her mouth hanged open as she stared at Say with eyes filled with disbelief. That moment she signed that contract, she already gave up not just her body but also her future and her dream. She was aware that she no longer owned herself, thus, she buried all her desire while wishing that they'll disappear with the flow of time. And yet, what is this? Say on the other hand could only continue watching the girl's stupefied face. To him, her speechless face filled with disbelief, her widened eyes and her mouth hanging open were somewhat amusing into his eyes. He thought that it wasn't that bad to surprise this girl once in a while. As long as you won't break my rules, as long as you prioritize your responsibility to me, you can do what you want. He continued, and after another long silence, the girl in front of him suddenly walked back and forth like a broken robot as her hands were pinching her own cheeks. After making sure that she wasn't dreaming, she looked at him with a beautiful wide smile filled with nothing but happiness. A smile Say thought was the most real and pure he has ever seen. Her usual bright eyes turned even brighter as if thousands of diamonds were being reflected in it. Say couldn't take his eyes away from her at that very moment. He didn't expect the girl to be that happy, he could only say deep within, so this is her when she's truly happy, huh? Thank you, she said as she reached out her hand and held his long and elegant hand, caressing it as if it was a truly precious treasure. I swear my dream will only be second to you. You will always be my priority, that's a promise. Say was stunned. His mind almost felt as if it halted for a moment. He didn't expect the words she just said at all. As if those words were enough. Without any warning, the girl quietly lifted Say's hand and with her eyes closed, she kissed his hand as if she was a gentle prince from the world of fairy tale and that Say was her adored princess. Say was speechless. The moment her warm lips landed on his hand, he felt as though he was electrocuted. Strangely, his mind almost wanted to just voluntarily shut itself down. Chapter 24 Amusement. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Meanwhile, a big cinnamon was rolling on the floor right after he took a good shot of that breathtaking moment. He gripped his cell phone as he was suppressing his mouth desperately not to laugh out loud and disrupt the current live fairy tale in the kitchen. He couldn't imagine the level of shock Say was suffering at the moment. It was because, even he, who was just quietly watching already suffered some 100 volts of shock because of that manly kiss. My God, Davi, Your Highness. What the hell are you trying to do? Zaki was too amused. He didn't expect Davi to suddenly turn herself into a gentle prince. After some moments, he crawled back to stand again when a loud sound of a dropped glass on the floor broke the stalemate of deep silence. Davi and Say instantly turned their head towards the corner where the sound came from and a pale young man was standing near the window while the grey curtains were dancing behind him. That sight of him, looking as though he's a beautiful boy who just rose from the dead, instantly transformed the manly prince a moment ago into something completely different. Ah! Ghost! Davi screamed the moment she saw him. She turned her head away instantly as she froze, thinking she just saw a ghost. It was because she was sure no one was there before. She was sure that she and Say were the only person in the kitchen the whole time. She was sure that nobody came in, and Mr. Chen is only peeking at the door until now. Davi's extreme fear made her entire body shiver, as though she just fell in the frozen water of Antarctica. Her wide eyes fell on the masked man right across the long table. Then she fell on her knees, crawled under the table and went straight toward Say. Oh.org. The moment she reached him, Davi clung into Say's thigh right away, causing Say's brows knitted behind his mask. Feeling her trembling body, Say felt a sudden urge to just kill the people responsible in turning her like this. But looking at the girl tightly hugging his thigh and shivering like a scared little bunny, Say could only put his big hand right away in her head to ease her from her excessive fear. It's not a ghost, it's Eugene, he said as he kept caressing her hair. Look. Upon hearing Say's words, Davi forced herself to come back to her senses. She knew that her reactions were somehow stupid and exaggerated to others, but she couldn't help it. Her body is reacting even faster than her brain when it comes to ghost. After a while, she raised her head without letting go of Say's thigh as she slowly peeked above the table. A pretty young boy with a really apologetic face appeared before her eyes. He was indeed the ghost she just saw. And he was no ghost, but a pretty young boy. He was that boy who was holding bunch of red roses she met the first day she arrived in this house, Eugene. The young man then walked towards her right away and bowed his head multiple times. I'm very sorry, young miss. I scared you, I'm truly sorry. He apologized over and over again, making Davi felt a bit guilty. She then forced herself to calm down and forget about her fear. No, it's alright. It's my fault, I get scared too easily. Haha. She was trying to laugh it off, but she's still clinging into Say's thigh. It was because she was still a bit scared. She's still filled with doubt even though she can see that the young man in front of her is a human in flesh. It was because she was sure that no one was there before, and if he's not a ghost, when did he get in? It would be impossible to get in without being seen because the only entrance was right in front of her. She couldn't even feel his presence at all. She wanted to find a way to convince herself, but want to make sure. Why don't you touch him? Say's voice abruptly made Davi lifted her head and stared at the man she's hugging. She instantly furrowed as though she couldn't believe what he just said. She couldn't help but feel another shiver down her spine. It was because the man appeared as though he can hear everything she didn't say into words. As though he can see her mind and can hear her inner voices. Ah. You too. Please stop scaring me, she pleaded with teary eyes. Instantly making Sei mystified. Huh. When did I scare her? Haha. It's really fine young me, the disguised Zaki who finally appeared to rescue the two hopeless beings beside her couldn't continue his words. It was because the girl suddenly jumped into him as soon as she heard him and then she hid behind him while tugging his shirt tight. Zaki was stunned on what the girl did, but the first thing he did was looked at the masked man in front of him. Sei's aura instantly turned unbelievably dark as he stood. His line of sight seemed to be locked on the girl's hand on Zaki's hip. Pfft. Zaki couldn't help but cover his mouth. He was too amused on what was going on, he wanted to just laugh out loud. His face was unbelievably bright, as if he was enjoying his current amusement. Noticing Zaki's mischievously bright expression, Sei realized his own reaction and was a bit surprised himself. He then suppressed his dark aura, but he was painfully distracted by the sight of her touching another man. He again glared back to the man still smiling at him mischievously as ever as if he was enjoying Sei's current troubled mood. Chapter 25 Guilty. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Seeing Sei almost about to snap, Zaki decided to stop teasing him. Huh, dear self, let's back off for the meantime. Ahem, young miss, listen. Zaki started talking. Eugene here isn't a ghost, okay? Does that cute little thing look like a ghost to you? He continued while pointing at the apologetic-looking boy. He is right, Eugene is the kind of a pretty boy any teenage girl wanted to just squeeze with hugs and kisses. But who said all ghosts look scary and disgusting? Beautiful ghosts also exist, right? Not hiding her doubts anymore, Davi opened her mouth. But how did he get in? I'm sure he wasn't there before. There's no way he could came in without me noticing at all. Her words made Zaki took a deep sigh as he stared at the boy as though telling him, this is all your fault, brat. Ah, so that's why huh? Actually, this brat here is a rare species. I mean, have you heard about individuals who sometimes appeared non-existent or unnoticeable? Well, I don't really know if they really have that certain aura, but... he just has that very weak presence that people easily overlook him as if he doesn't exist at all. The truth is, even I get startled by him. Yeah, from freaking time to time because I could only notice him once he talks or make an obvious move. It's actually his real nature, did you? I mean. Convinced. Hearing his long explanation, Davi's excessive fear lessened into half. It was because she remembered that she once read an article about what they called, Grey Man, 1. She didn't know if the case were somewhat similar, but she felt as though Zaki's explanation does really make sense. She then slowly raised her head and stared at the young man. Please, let me apologize. She said as she slowly reached out her hand. The next second, her finger started poking the boy's cheek, carefully and gently with a stance that she was ready to run away. However, by the time she finally started pinching him, Davi is finally convinced. Oh. You really are human. Forgive me for misunderstanding you. The young man on the other hand, instantly turned red because Davi started pinching both of his cheek as if she just wanted to punish him for scaring her in a really cute and embarrassing way. A view that instantly turned the quiet man colder. And boss here. How should I put this? You know he's always have that scary aura, right? Zaki abruptly talked to get Davi's attention. It was because the masked man's aura was turning even darker as he kept staring at his wife touching another man. Thankfully, Davi turned her head. She stared at the masked man, fidgeting. It's not about that, she said. Causing Zaki's brows knitted as he looked at Sei. Young master, what did you do? He asked, but the masked man just replied him in his same unmotivated voice. I didn't do anything. Hearing his answer, Zaki turned his head back towards Davi. Wait, don't tell me it's because of what he said, he asked, and he couldn't help but scratch his head when Davi nodded. Did you think he can see what's on your mind? Or what you're saying deep within? He asked again, and again. She nodded. I think you should explain yourself to her. Zaki laughed as he turned toward Say. But Say stayed silent. And his silence strangely made Davi felt a sudden guilt. She didn't know why, but she suddenly felt sad the moment she realized that she's actually thinking he was ghost. Deep within her, she doesn't want to get scared of him at all. And she suddenly felt bad, feeling sorry about her treatment to him. Thinking about that, she then stepped closer him, fidgeting. I'm sorry, I think I just got carried away because of my excessive fear. I think I'm just overthinking things way too much. She said apologetically. Hearing her sudden apology, Say's coldness abruptly disappeared. No, it's fine. I'm fully aware why you're scared. Don't sweat it. He said and patted her head before nonchalantly walking away as if nothing happened. At the master's bedroom. Davi was already asleep the moment Say reached the bedroom. He stood beside the bed and watched her wife's peaceful sleeping face for a long time. Minutes went by and Say finally laid in the bed. And as soon as he was about to close his eyes, he felt her warm hand tightly hugging him. I'm sorry, she said. Say was instantly surprised. She's still awake. What's she asking sorry for? Say was about to talk, but he stopped right away the moment he heard her weak and cute snore. Sleep talking. Say's hand fell into her head and he started caressing her hair gently as ever. Chapter 26 Sense of Taste. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Surprisingly, Say didn't woke up at deep dawn. It was the first time he slept that long. He's always been the kind of strange creature who always seems to be competing against the sun on who will be the first to rise. And for the first time in forever, the sun finally took its long-awaited victory against him. By the time Say opened his eyes, he lifted his eye mask right away and his gorgeous brows knitted as though he was really surprised the moment he saw the bright sunshine piercing through the glass window. He's about to rise when he felt a weight on his arm. Realizing that his wife was still sleeping, he quietly removed his eye mask and slowly reached out his hand, grabbing his mask on the table. After a moment, he gently lifted her head, but to his surprise, the girl suddenly opened her eyes in the process. Good morning, she said, and after almost 3 seconds, Say could only nod at her. He then let go of her and get off the bed right away while the girl was still yawning like a cute little cat, slowly standing up straight. The moment Say stepped out of the master's bedroom, a large face abruptly appeared in front of him. What did you two did last night that you actually woke up this late for the first time ever? Wait. Don't tell me. Did you guys did it? Did you? Zaki's eyes were almost bulging out. His face was too close, almost crashing into Say's face, causing Say to suddenly put his palm on his face and mercilessly pushed him away. And ignoring the man like thin air, Say just walked towards his study room as if he didn't hear him at all. Hey, don't ignore me. Wait, but. No response means, yes, right. Whoa, Say. Am I going to expect a baby soon? A sound of a door shut closed clammed Zaki's mouth. However, his mischievous smirk didn't fade even though he can already tell that nothing really happened between the two. Zaki was just enjoying himself teasing Say while he's still in his so-called human mode. He knows that once the guy changed back to his usual monster mode, he can never tease him like that again. Minutes later. Say, already dressed majestically handsome as if he's about to meet another being as terrifying as him, stepped out of his study room. And at that same moment, Davi, who was about to call him for breakfast, couldn't say a word upon seeing him dressed as though he was about to walk into a red carpet meant for the most powerful royalty. She was flustered and silenced by his seemingly magical looks. But thankfully, after more than 3 seconds, she finally able to talk. Breakfast is ready. Say was about to answer her when Zaki abruptly talked behind Davi. Ah, young miss. You can go ahead. We'll follow soon. Upon hearing him, Davi just nodded at him and took one last glance into the masked man before quietly walking away. Only when the back view of the girl could no longer be seen did Zaki abruptly sidle to the masked man. Are you saying that we'll leave again without even eating breakfast? And despite your wife's invitation? Are you going to leave her eating alone? Alone in that dull huge long table of yours? I mean alone. Where's your heart, you frozen L? Zaki couldn't continue his supposedly long set of heart-aching speech meant for forcing Say to eat first before leaving. It was because the man already walked past him, leaving him like nothing as he walks towards the kitchen, causing Zaki to almost jump with happiness. Truth was that, upon seeing him already dressed, Zaki knew that he's already planning to leave right away. And so he tried coaxing him to at least eat first. But of course, more than half of the reason why he was desperately trying to force Say to eat was because Zaki just saw that Davi's recipe for breakfast is his favorite. He was in love at first taste with Davi's cooking since he tasted the hot pot she cooked for Say yesterday. He and Eugene actually devour all the leftovers like mad the moment Say left, quietly thanking the gods that they didn't bestowed Say a normal sense of taste. Chapter 27. Oh, so talkative. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After breakfast, Say moved right away to leave. Noticing his unusual hastiness, Davi then walked beside him in his pace towards the entrance. When will you back? She asked. And the masked man just answered her with another one word. Tomorrow. Somehow, Davi felt as though she was really glad that he wasn't leaving for another long days. One reason why was that, Davi was afraid that the familiarity she established with him will be hard to maintain when he disappear again. And worse was that, she noticed that whenever he comes home, it was as though the thick frozen barrier around him that she worked so hard to soften while he's with him will always going back to its usual frosty coldness again. And every time that happens, it only means she has to begin again. Oh. I see. Davi nodded as she smiled at him pleasantly, as though his single-word response just made her exceptionally happy. Seeing the girl's unbelievably bright eyes and dazzling face, Say thought it might be because she had such a good sleep last night. She even seemed to be the reason why he himself slept that long. Something that appeared to be a once-in-a-blue-moon experience for him. Thinking about it, Say halted and faced towards her. Making Davi looked at him with curious eyes. About what I said yesterday, you can do what you want. Say's words caused Davi to blink 3 times. Then another bright smile carved in her pretty face. I'll do my best, she said in a tone filled with energy and determination. Good. Say put his big hand into Davi's head for a while before walking away. But the moment Say's hand left her head, Davi unconsciously raised her hand and played with her hair he just touched. She seemed to be lost in thought for a moment. It was because every time Say does that to her, she felt as though Say was such a warm, cold person. It was as if, his icy voice, his cold, mysterious aura and his deafening silence will all melted at once every time she felt the warmth of his hand. To her, his warm hand is a powerful energy ball. And the only thing she can do at the moment was smile, run after him and do what's needed to be done. Just before Say steps out of the entrance, he noticed an approaching fast and light steps, so he turned his head back. To his surprise, the girl suddenly pulled his hand towards her from behind him, tiptoed, then kissed him near his lips, and ran away in a flash without turning back. Say stood there motionless for a moment, at the same time puzzled as he watches Davi's disappearing silhouette. He was wondering why she always ran away instantly every time she kisses him. Ho ho ho, another flash kiss, huh? How sweet. Zaki's annoying voice instantly burst the moment Say entered the car. Thinking he could tease him again, Zaki was about to continue talking when Say dropped a word bomb towards him. We're late, he said. And those 2 words instantly clammed Zaki's mouth for quite a pleasing long time. He then focused himself driving as fast as he could. But some time later, the bomb slowly dissipated and he talked again. Ugh. I wonder how high the intensity of that old man's anger when we arrive. Zaki already removed his mask since a while ago, so at that moment, his pale face showed nothing but wariness. A face that appeared as though they're about to head into a certain deadly devil's den. Intensity 6, answered Say while quietly focusing on his laptop. Ha. It may look intensity 6 to you but to me, it's intensity 10. You get it. Ah, how about you go alone? Zaki's voice was loud. It was as if he's getting nervous while they're getting closer. However, Say's quiet self was already telling him that his request isn't possible, ignoring him as though his worried self wasn't all serious at all. And he was right, Zaki gritting his teeth like scaredy little cat was nothing real. Most of his expressions of course, were all acting, and he was simply enjoying it. The car soon went inside a huge gate and countless large and small containers were seen as far as the eyes could see, while numbers of huge cargo ships were towering from not afar. And as Zaki drives through the huge port, he opened his oh so talkative mouth again. Ah, but isn't this your fault? He said, but the man beside him appeared as though he couldn't hear any sound coming from him. But of course, Zaki still continued. If only you woke up early as usual, then we didn't. Well, but if you did wake up early, I surely missed that food. Ah, that food is really, shut up. Chapter 28 Step number 10 You are listening at novelfull.audio. Somewhere in Blue City. Davi's mind was busy as she looks around the familiar place. However, she was still thinking about that kiss and run. Truth was that, she never meant to do it that way again, she wanted to kiss him naturally like what couple normally does. However, she thought about the step number 07 written on her notebook. Step number 07, make him think about you / make him curious about the things you do / make him wonder. Davi thought of trying to turn the kiss and run into double-edged weapon. If Say will wonder why she's doing it that way, if he thinks about her a bit longer because of it, then it's working. But, if in case, Say won't react the third time she does it, then she needs to drop that strategy down and think of something new. Because as what Hinari said, experiment, experiment. And see which is working and which is not, but remember, don't overdo it. After an hour, Davi finally reached her destination. Standing in front of a certain school gate, she raised her head then stared at the buildings across the softball ground. While looking at it, a memory from a year ago came back to her as though it all just happened yesterday. Listen to me, Missouri. You're one of a kind, you're the most exceptional student I ever met in my entire career as a teacher for decades, so please don't waste that rare potential bestowed upon you. Do you understand? Those words were from her teacher, Ms. Lee. She was a good teacher who was always pestering her to pursue her studies in one of the most elite universities in the country. She even gathered a lot of university candidates for her, telling her that she can also get the most exclusive scholarships at those schools. However, during those times, Davi's mind was clouded. After her graduation in high school, she went straight to find work. Her brother's health was deteriorating. Davi didn't have any choice but work to save her dearest brother. Until times went by and Davi almost forgot about her own dreams, her life was entirely focused in working in her brother, nothing more. During those times, she was indeed as what others said, an unfortunate gem that was stuck with the gravel stones. Envied until the day she met that person. When Davi signed that contract, sold herself to a stranger, one thing was clear to her, that she was no longer allowed to dream for herself. She was ready to bury everything and live a life with unknown future, and yet Say came and told her to keep dreaming. Truth was, Davi still couldn't believe it. She didn't know if Say just said it for her to ease her boredom, but it was everything to her. She will grab the chance he gave her. She will do it no matter what it takes. Okay, let's do it, she said while raising her fist as she finally entered the school, confident and fearless. After a few minutes, she finally met Ms. Lee. The two embraced each other as though they were a pair of sweet grandmother and granddaughter. They chatted for a long while. The teacher expressed her disappointment when she didn't see her name in last year's exam's result. However, she said she's still waiting for Davi this whole time. I'm telling you, Missouri, I'm really glad that you finally realized that a life without dream is nonsense. Even if life will break you to pieces, as long as you won't let go of that dream, you can survive anything. Believe in yourself. Ms. Lee's words is like a spear that pierced through Davi's heart. This teacher is still indeed the best teacher she ever met and could only answer her with a tight hug and a, "Yes, Ms. I'll do my best." The teacher then arranged her to take the entrance exam for the top 3 elite universities, next month. Davi told her that she wanted to avail the full scholarship, so in order for her to get it, her challenge is to top the exam. The next day, Say arrived home but the girl wasn't there. The butler told him that Davi went to Blue City early in the morning. Not asking any more details about the whys and whats, Say went straight to the sofa. He saw thick books under the table. His line of sight fell into the book on top entitled, Medical Microbiology. By simply looking at it, Say could already tell what the girl was up to. After a while, Say went to the kitchen when he noticed something that was sticking on the fridge. He moves closer to it right away. Truth was that, even if Davi wasn't home, she didn't forget about her priority. She was thinking that she needed to take another step and do her sworn mission even when she's away from him. Step number 10. Level up cheesy moves. One of the leveled up cheesy move written in her notebook was the so-called, cute romance in a love note. And one of the ultimate strategy was to cook something for him, then leave a love note with it. And to do that, Davi woke up early in the morning and cooked a snack for Say. Afterwards, she left a cheesy lovey-dovey note sticking in the fridge. "I made a snack for you. I hope you will like it." Davi was written and a cute heart with a smile inside it was drawn after her name. Chapter 29. Twin Brother. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The moment Say opened the fridge, a cute heart-shaped chocolate cake appeared before his eyes. A red cherry was on top of it. By just a glance, anyone could tell how much time was spent with just the design, to the point that one could think, it was such a waste to eat it. After the second time Say read the note, he gently moved his hand and took the cake, then he sat quietly on the table. He stared at the cake for a long time, then took another long while staring at the note. "If you're not going to eat it, let me. Besides, she already left you such a lovey-dovey note, that's more than enough for you, right? And you're not fond with foods anyway." Abruptly, Zaki's face appeared across him along with his annoying voice. His gaze was focused on the cake in Say's hand, as he was licking his own lips, almost about to drool. Seeing his sorry appearance, Say glared at him coldly. Then, ignoring him like nothing, he took a spoon and started eating the cake as if no one was there. Until he's about to devour it all and Zaki finally snapped. "Ah, what a greedy man. At least leave some for me," he pleaded, but the cold man didn't even glance at him. Frustrated, Zaki could only tug his hair, looking as though his spirit is about to leave him. However, what Zaki heard next caused his spirit instantly rose to life again. "Ah, senpai, the young miss actually left some, though it wasn't heart-shaped, no design at all. I think, it's just leftovers, so I ate half of it. It's surprisingly really delicious." Another young man who appeared to be just the same age as Eugene, talked. "He resembles Eugene so much that anyone who can see them both will think they're actually biological twins, or he's Eugene's perfect doppelganger. Well, he is indeed his twin brother, and the only difference between them was their hair color. Eugene has a black and silky hair while his twin brother Eugene has messy blonde hair." "You damn brat, why did you just said it now? I don't care about design or whatsoever, I just want to eat it now. Bring it out." Zaki was angered, surprised and at the same time, delighted. His face was filled with numbers of different emotions that anyone seeing his face that moment will go confused. But of course, a certain emotion was refusing to blend with the others. His impatience was going wild, as if his life depends on that chocolate cake, and that he will die if another minute will pass by without him still tasting it. As soon as the boy gave the cake to him, his face was instantly covered with stars. And without any further ado, he ate the cake, and as expected, the food's level of deliciousness didn't fail to appear across his face. An invisible perfect 5 stars as his personal review was instantly reflected in his eyes. Minutes later, Zaki finally turned his head and talked to the newcomer sitting beside him. "Anyway, Eugen, when did you get here?" "Last night," he replied, and then the young man faced toward Say. Boss. Can I guard the young miss as well? The young miss might get bored to death if she will get stuck with Eugene, I'm sure of it." "Who said that she knew she's being guarded?" Zaki responded as though he was the one he was asking. But thanks to his response, Eugen now fully understood why it should be his younger brother and no one else was more fitted with that kind of job. He knows that the ability of his twin brother is perfect for that sort of job. "Oh, I see, so that's why you chose Eugene. He's indeed the perfect man for that." Chapter 30 Step Number 10 Part 2 You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the dim-toned study room, Say was quietly standing near the large window as his gaze was locked into the wide garden below. "So," he asked, and for some reason, his cold frosty aura is back to its original form. However, to Eugen, he was much more used to this cold usual aura of him than the unusual him who looks a bit warm and all. He was actually downright confused when he saw his tyrant boss eating a chocolate cake and staring at a love note in his hand an hour ago. It was a scene that never even appeared in his dreams. And he was sure that no one will believe him when he tells the news to his comrades. "Good thing I was the one he sent here this time, I actually witnessed a fascinating development, haha. I'm indeed a lucky existence. Boss, there's a huge lead in Hayes's team. Currently, they're waiting for your order before moving to 7th continent, but the target country will still depend on what you think. Do I need to request the datas right now?" "No need. Tell them to wait for me." Upon hearing Eugen's words, Say's voice instantly turned terrifyingly frigid. The frost in his already cold gaze almost tripled in just a few milliseconds, that if he continues in that state, the air around the whole room might eventually freeze. "So what's your plan? How long will you leave her this time?" Zaki's words were like a powerful brake abruptly stopping a full-speed bullet train. However, the man's coldness was only forced to calm. It appeared as though it was a sudden calm before a deadly storm. "She's here," Zaki continued as his eyes fell at the black car entering the garage. As soon as Davi stepped out of the car, she breathed really deep. It was because she was planning to execute another move on him as soon as she sees him. She then walked towards the entrance, dressed with a simple yet catchy white knee-level dress while her black hair was tied. She looks like she's in between a certain skinned supermodel and an innocent yet captivating student. She certainly has a beyond beautiful look no one can ignore. A bag of books were on her hand, and her other hand was hiding something from behind her back. Davi's footsteps went closer to the sofa and she was ready to execute the remaining cheesy move in her list for step number 10 part 2. Thankfully, she saw the silhouette of a masked man sitting on the couch and was seemingly waiting for her. Davi's fresh face instantly turned even brighter as she moves towards him. Noticing her footsteps, the masked prince raised his head towards her. His line of sight was locked onto her until she finally stood right before him. "I'm back," she said with her usual energetic smile. And as usual, Say just nodded at her uttering a single sound, Davi then wasted no time. She put down the bag of books in her hand then stood straight before him while her hands were both hiding behind her back. With just a glance, Say could tell that she's about to give him something. Curious, he anticipated the thing she's about to show. And the next second, Davi stretched out her hand. And a single red rose was now in front of him. "For you," she said. Say was instantly puzzled as he gazed at the rose and then at the girl with a dazzling smile. He didn't expect her to give him a rose, since he's supposed to be the one giving her that. And yet, her eyes were almost twinkling as though there's billions of stars in it. As though she really wanted to and was really happy to give him that rose. Her eyes never twinkled like that when he gave her a truck of red roses. So what's with the huge difference? Another thing was, the rose wasn't the one irresistible at all, it was her look, her every expression, and the way she gave the rose to him. While she was normally nearly always bright and determined every single time, she was far more dazzling at the moment. One could just accept whatever she gave even if it's a bomb. After a few moments, Say finally lifted his hand and took the red rose in her hand. That moment he took it, Davi's eyes, which was filled with invisible billions of stars, almost appeared as though it exploded with happiness. Seeing her seemingly exaggerated reaction, Say couldn't help but felt somewhat amused. Until the girl picked her bag and said, "I'll go tidy this up." Then turned her back while still smiling wide, as Say was left scrutinizing the rose in his hand as though he was dissecting it with his sharp, razor-like gaze.